What up, guys? This is another episode here on the Mindful Experiment. Excited to share with you as each week I come out and share something, some tip, something that I can level up the consciousness of you in your life and what you're doing and how to help in that way. From maybe my experiences, maybe talking to a coaching client, maybe through a meditation of some sort. There's going to be something's going to come every week. I'm always like, what am I going to talk about next week? And then it'll just come. It strikes and hits me. This last weekend, I had a lot of stuff hit me that was interesting and I wanted to share with you guys because this is something that you've gone through in your life. And maybe it's been one obstacle, maybe a couple, maybe it's been a continuation of obstacles. Okay. Last year in COVID, the lockdowns and what we're experiencing is wearing and tearing on people. And it's one of the things where you have the opportunity to either let that control you and let that influence you, like current events and things like that's going on in the world, or you can give yourself the best opportunity to adapt to these situations and so much more. This past weekend, recently I took on a project. It was a hobby passion of mine, something I love to do. I've been practicing this for about 4 or 5 years, and that's like house and woodworking and repairs and understanding how things work and what needs a house has to be, what's the structures, how things happen. And it's actually become some of a passion of mine. I like woodworking. I'm not the greatest at it. I'm still an amateur by all means. But when I do have time to play, I like to learn different things that I'm trying to create in some way, shape, or form. I get fascinated by these things. One of the things that I really like is structural work, framing, the big projects, putting it together, building tables, and big stuff. I don't like little fine-tuned finishing stuff. It annoys me. Maybe I just don't have the patience for it. But long story short, my wife and I took on a project last year and we decided to start another business. It was a passion of ours to do. And it was to either flip homes, rentals, renovate, do those types of things. She likes design work a lot. She gets really passionate about design work and gets really excited about it. And she's pretty good at it, if you ask me. I love my house the way it's designed. I have close to white walls in my office. It looks white from the background if you're watching the video on this. But I'm not a white gray person. I never have been. But when she put it together and I looked at design, I was like, well, that's fresh. It's crisp. I like that. But anyway, long story short, this last weekend, I was in Tennessee working on our project that we have. And it was the moment we got there. So I leave my office at 6:15 at night and I drive 8 hours and I lose an hour. So it's like 9 hours. Down to Tennessee in the middle of the night. We get there around 3 a.m, 3:30. And this is after a whole day of being up since 4 a.m. that day. And there was just issues with reservation. They said my reservation wasn't there. Now imagine you've been up since 4 a.m. working nonstop, right? Because those days are hectic for me. And then 6 something, I'm on the road cruising down as quick as I can get there. And I get there and I know I only got 3 to 4 hours of sleep. That's all we get the first night, 3 to 4 hours of sleep. And I say it's me and my dad taking the ride down. And in that process, they're like, yeah, you don't have a reservation. And I'm going, hold up. I'm not in the twilight zone. I'm not that sleepy or sleep deprived. I'm looking at my emails and I see, boom, there's my confirmation when I did it. And then there's my heads up, like, hey, you can check in early, that kind of thing. So I'm like, I already know that this is official. Never saw an email confirmation. So we're going through the process and they're like, well, yeah, unfortunately, this just happens because I get a certain rate. And I was like, hold on here. I'm a little sleep deprived. But let me just tell you that, sorry, I may come off a little harsh here. And so I was very direct and assertive in what I was trying to explain. Long story short, 40 minutes later, going to bed at 4:15 in the morning and get up at 7:30, it all worked out. But we wake up and guess what happens? I look at my truck. I'm pulling out, getting ready to go to the job site at the house. And I get massive alerts on my car saying my tire's flat. I said, you gotta be kidding me. These are new tires back in September. They're big tires. I'm like, I can't see this happening, but we pull off to the side, a dead flat tire. And I'm like, we're trying to look at it. We're putting air into it. And we could see something that looked like a staple. So I'm like, all right, let's fill this up. Let's see what we get out of this and take it from there. I'm just thankful at that moment, right? Now you can be mad, you can be aggravated, you can be frustrated, right? When things come up, but there is always a silver lining. You got to really look for it. And for me, I was like, damn, I look at my dad and I go, I am so happy that we made it here because when we're driving through Tennessee, Kentucky and Tennessee, there's a lot of mountains, there's ups and downs, there's bends and curves and all that. I'm like, that tire could have blew out if it was that bad, and we wouldn't be here. So I'm blessed right now. I'm not mad at all. Let's just get this filled. I will figure this out. I got one day of sunshine that was guaranteed based on the weather, and we were painting a house that day. And so, long story short, you instead of getting caught up in the moment, you take a step back, take a breather, and assess the situation. And how can you make it be the best thing possible, right? I used to do this in high school with my cousin and some other friends of ours, where we always just be like, no matter what shows up, no matter what happens, we're going to make the best of it. And we always did. It was something I cherished. And because of that, it has taught me that when things show up, and sometimes I'm not perfect, guys. I'm human. So there's times things get to me. And there are times when it doesn't, where I'll just be like, hey, let me take a moment. And even my wife goes, how are you not frustrated? How do you not get upset about this? And it's like, I'm not upset. I'm just choosing to look at it as a different situation. So whatever, we get the tire filled, we get to the house, everything's good. We have had hiccups along the way. Some other things came up, but it was one thing after another the whole entire weekend. Even driving back, sometimes it's like a game for me when I drive back. I'm like, how much I get to set the time. Google tells me how long it's going to take. And I'm like, okay, how much of that time can I cut off? And so long story short, I cut off no time at all. And I'm like, what happened here? And I love when you get traffic, when there's no reason for the traffic. It's just traffic. It just slows to a halt, and then you move again. So there was always something after another this weekend, right? Now, I could have let that get to me. I could have let that have frustrated me like crazy. I could have lost myself in that journey. But I chose a different direction because I knew that in that journey, in that process, I was there. I was focused. I wasn't going to let the distractions of life distract me from the purpose of why I took this trip and why I took it this weekend and made it so short. I was only there Friday and Saturday, and we were back coming home Sunday. And the reason why is that in life, we allow a lot of things to get in our way. We allow things in life to interrupt with us, okay? There's things happen, COVID, lockdown, there's excuses, or that may be a distraction. And now all of a sudden, you're letting that take a part of your life and let that pull you away from your focus. Right? You can look at this in many elements of your life. You look at your marriage or relationships. You can look at financial health. You can look at mental and physical. You can look at career and business. We have distractions. And here's the thing. If you're not getting things achieved of what you want to do in your life, or you're not experiencing it, there's only two things that I know in the 37 times I've come around the sun. There's only two things that I know that can be. You haven't given it enough time, law of gender, or you've been distracted in the process. And the harder or the more straightforward you are with yourself, no bullshit, no excuses, you get really raw with yourself and say, have I been giving into things? Have I been letting things get in the way? Have I been really focused, or have I been letting things coming up? Because most of the time, in my experience, I've learned that it's mostly distractions. Yes, there is things called time. There is things called, you just got to let things process, right? And there's law of gender just means there's a gestational period for everything in the universe. Everything has a gestational period. There's a time and a place for everything. As long as you give the energy and as long as you keep raising the vibe, it's going to do just that. So you have to understand these two concepts. And if you grasp that, you're going to get what you want in a matter of time. And I learned this law because of the process of healing. As a chiropractor, and I like to preach this a lot or share this a lot, is that chiropractors are really true health doctors. That's what we do. We focus on the essence of what supports the whole totality of the body and the brain, right? We improve the function of the nervous system, which is what controls every single thing in the body. Right. And if that's not communicating well, and that's not in ease and functioning and all that good stuff, well, then the body and everything else doesn't do it either. It's just not going to. It's impossible, because that's the control mechanism. It's just like a control mechanism in a car or a control mechanism in a computer. If it's not functioning well, I don't care what you do to it. If you don't look at the control mechanism, nothing else is going to work right. And so this is the thing where when it comes to chiropractic, there is a process to healing. And what I'm fascinated by after the 10 plus years of being a chiropractor is that I've seen, as much as I want to get the quickest results for my patients, right? I've also learned now at this time and age that I've been where I'm at now in life, is that there's a process and it's going to take time. And I don't know what that time is. But I know that as long as we do the work and we support the body and the nervous system and give it what it needs, we're going to get there. Well, I learned that that's also life in business. That's also in financial health. That's also in relationships. That's also in every single facet of life, because it's called the law of gestation or law of gender. And so understanding these concepts and understanding this in your life can really create massive growth, but also limit your stress. It will also lower your aggravation and frustration, because you know that there's a process and you just got to take a step back and learn and see what the universe is bringing to you, that you have to fine tune to be the person you need to be, the vibe at the certain level you need to vibe to achieve and experience and have or manifest what it is, the reality of what you want to experience. Okay. Now, going through this weekend, I have built a ton of reserves to handle those types of things. Do not get me wrong. I was mentally exhausted. I was. It was something that I was like, not only was I physically drained, right? 3.5 hours of sleep, a 14.5 hour day of work nonstop with another 15.5 hour day, plus another 12.5 hour day on top of that. Straight physical. I mean, I was driving home, when you look at it all, but still, this is what my weekend was. But I prep mentally and physically as much as I possibly can to give myself the reserves. And then Monday, I had to go back into the office. But what did I do to help myself? I slept in, which I normally don't do. Normally I'd be up at 4 or 5 and get my work done before I go to the office. I know I had to take it a little easier because of how much I went through. And then Tuesday comes and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sleep in again to make sure I'm getting as much deep restorative sleep possible so that I can feel a little bit back to myself. And today I can say I'm 100% back. Excited. I'm still resting, so I'm not going to be like my workouts. I'm not doing those until Wednesday, just so I can give my physical body, that little bit of a break, because it was 3 hard physical days. And so I'm supporting my body to give it what it needs so it can repair and heal to move forward. And so you build up these resiliency. So you work and rest, right? Work and rest. I wasn't like this before. I was a guy who never stopped until all of a sudden I would be burned out one time, couldn't figure out why, or my back would give out or something in my body would give up because I stressed it so much and I was taking and not giving back. So when you look at life, here's the thing from a mental standpoint, right? From a mindset standpoint, is that if you're not prepping the mind and doing things for your mind in some shape or form to help it build resiliency, to recharge the batteries of the brain and to do those things, you will let distractions become a lot easier to pull you away. It just happens that way. You're not sharpening the mind. And so these are practices that we've talked about on this podcast for gazillions of time. I teach clients this all the time. Eventually, I have an online class for free 1 week on just mindfulness. You can check out the link in the show notes and you can go ahead and take advantage of that, where I just share 3 or 5 videos, simple techniques on what you can do to help incorporate mindfulness in your life. But one of these things is that you build these reserves so that when these things show up, you don't be distracted. When the hurricane's coming, I don't care if it's an F1 or is it F1? I think it's an F1. I think that's tornadoes. What is it? Category 1? Anyhow, I don't remember the nomenclature to all this. But let's say Category 1. If the hurricane's a Category 1 or a Category 5, it doesn't matter. It could be a Category 10. It does not matter, because if you have the resiliency within yourself to stay centered and get into the eye of the storm, you will stay calm, centered, and you'll be a force to reckon with. And that the universe will supply more towards you because you stay centered and focused through that process. So that's my tip today that I was excited to share with you guys after everything I went through this last weekend. But no matter what, shit hits the fan in life. It's going to happen. And if anyone who tells you it doesn't, they're lying through their teeth. It's universal laws and quantum physics and all these other things that show you that life is a sine wave. There's ups and downs. You never, ever, 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 ever just go straight up. Nobody does. Maybe you try to create that for yourself, but it doesn't happen. Stock markets, which I've been studying for the last 3 years, just the stocks in general, all the tools that they have and how trend markets work. It's just amazing. What was amazing me the most, though, is the stock market is the exact thing as a human experience. Goes up and down, right? But over time, there's a straight line that goes up. In chiropractic, I use these specific scans when I'm scanning patients, and I tell them it's the same thing. It's ups and downs as we work through the process. It's amazing how it works like a stock. And I even talk sometimes like it is. Like, hey, you're at a support level right now. This is great. We should have a good bounce up from here. And they're like, are you teaching me stocks or are you talking about health, my health here? And I'm like, well, kind of both, actually. But it's one of those things that, in life, we're going to have these ups and downs, but it's your resiliency and what you're practicing in the time where no one's listening to you, no one's watching you. When you do that work back in the back door, that is what lets the light shine. And I think it's Tony Robbins who says this, like, those who do the work in the darkness, or not the darkness, but basically what he's saying is people who prepare behind closed doors are the ones that shine the brightest in front of everyone. And so the key factor is that as long as you're doing the work, you will shine, and you will shine bright, my friends. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Check out this week. We're having a ton of episodes released. So yesterday we released a podcast that we did an interview on. And then this Friday, we have another one coming up. We have a lot of great interviews coming up, guys. Like I said, we are booked up and have recorded already up into end of July. And by the end of May, we'll be booked up all the way until the end of October. So, and we're doing we're handpicking now certain interviews that we want to have for you guys so that we can give you some really good quality content. And always, 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 you can email me at drvic@empoweryourreality.com. My email's in the show notes. If there is a topic you're interested in, or if there's someone you may be interested in and say, hey, Doc, I think I would love to see you interview this person, please send it my way. I'd be more than happy to reach out and connect or share a topic on that subject, or to find out if I can get that person on this podcast. As always, I appreciate you guys. Until next time, keep rocking and rolling.